Yeah, we just like, hi everyone. Thanks. We agreed with Tobias that we'll do just like a 20 seconds intro each of our own, so we don't do this kind of bio reading. Welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. It's exciting to open the second plant-based segment that we do at CARE. It's the second year that we do it. And when we at Anima International were thinking like how to approach and what to do with plant-based segment at CARE and how to kind of help us elevate us and grow as activists in that particular segment, we thought that what we're missing is, or what we should maybe need more is that kind of meta-level discussion or going behind what's quite obvious. And my initial idea and quite obvious was to invite one of the biggest minds and the greatest thinkers in our movement, Tobias, to have a chat and have an honest, no bullshit conversation. And I think Tobias is a good person to have an honest, no bullshit conversation. We'll discuss some things. Maybe we'll get a bit controversial, hopefully. We'll get you to ask questions. Maybe Tobias, you do an intro of yourself and then I will have 20 seconds.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. It's always wonderful to be, like Josh said, with like-minded people. I think it's our greatest strength to be this friendship and this alliances that we have. I think it's wonderful. So thank you all for being here. I'm Tobias. I have been an activist for almost 30 years. It's strange at one point to find yourself in a room and think I'm the oldest person in the room here. It's very weird. I know this T-shirt that says like it's weird to be the same age as old people. That's
how
exactly
do you do, fellow
how
kids?
And so I founded some organizations. I co-founded Pro-Veg International. I wrote a book, How to Create a Vegan World. I blog, I give talks all over the place. So that's basically what I do.
Yay, applause for Tobias. Come on. Yeah, and I will try to catch up with the amount of things Tobias does. I'm Maciej. I'm in charge of running various plant-based campaigns in Poland, mostly roślinnie jemy. I'm representing Anima International on this stage. I'm also a co-founder of Polish Plant-Based Food Producers Union, and do lots of things to make the world less shitty for animals, but from the food system side. So that's what I mostly do. And let's get to it. Thanks. We'll start with a spicy one. And some of you maybe already watched Louis Bollard TED Talk. Who already watched TED Talk? Okay, so you're quite familiar. But I will still give an intro to what he talked about and what resonated with me. And then we had a conversation with Tobias about some things. So one of the things that kind of got stuck with me after watching his talk is that he would argue that we should not talk about diet, but we should try to find allies over the fact that people seem to generally care about animals. And I kind of resonated quite well. And I think what Josh was talking about half an hour ago also kind of speaks to that approach of building a bigger tent. You actually also wrote a post about building a bigger tent. And one of the thoughts that we shared with Tobias over the recent weeks is that we might be hostages of veganism. So veganism might keep our movement hostage. And yeah, maybe we start with some of your thoughts, Tobias, on that. And
Yeah, there's a lot to be said. So basically, I'm often going back and forth between like what should we focus most on, diet change for these different reasons, including animals, but also environment and health and others, and on the other hand, animal welfare. And I go really back and forth. I have been involved mostly in diet change for a long time, but then something I'm particularly concerned about is the move that we have seen towards the political right, and we know that those people are very uninterested in, for instance, in climate change as an argument. They are more interested in animal welfare, so that could be a reason to like focus more on animal welfare than on the diet change side of things. On the other hand, I do like the idea that with diet change we have more arguments than just animal welfare, so I'm really not clear. What I am, I think, more and more clear about is that like the whole vegan thing is very much a challenge, and when we talked about it holding us hostage, I mean like it's hard to do. It's hard not to do it. It's hard to like not be vegan. We all are, I think, vegan, but it's such an unpopular thing, and it's such like a high level, a high bar for other people to get into. And to some extent, I think sometimes we have to just shut up about it. And part of our movement just can't. You know, part of me, it's all that they want to talk about. So yeah, I am honestly confused about that.
Yeah, same. Like, I briefly checked like some of the reports that we did recently on like cage-free developments in Poland, and what is very interesting is that we get like 70% of Polish population kind of agrees that we shouldn't keep. They care when they make like purchases, not to buy like the worst standard eggs. Whereas even if we talk about meat reduction, then it's get like 35 to 40% who kind of align with that. So you can see like there's a major potential part or like allyship with white parts of society that we might not be capitalizing upon. And then like I think like one thing that is very interesting as we professionalize as a movement, and we get to do like policy things, we get to do work with businesses, and we also get to get funds to hire people to work with that. And maybe we didn't discuss it in our preparation, but I think like we'll soon be facing like a very big talent gap. So like how to find like vegans who are professional enough or like smart enough. I mean, like we're all very smart and great people, but sometimes we lack expertise to, I don't know, or lack network to work with them, like people on the highest level. And maybe it's time to back down a bit and build that common grounds on that common premise, that on the shared value of caring about animals.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the reason, so I started for animal rights, like everybody, 30 years ago, and the reason why I founded a vegan organization, not an animal rights organization, was that I saw that so many people didn't seem to care much about animals, but cared more about their health and the environment. And so that's why I really got into diet change and all these other things. And now, yeah, you were saying like more people care about animals. So not sure of the direction
of course,
we have
like
to take.
Caring about animals might mean very different things.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and one thing that I worried about is that so this animal care translates maybe, hopefully, in the best case, in those welfare changes. And I'm really not going to criticize welfare campaigns, but still, I think, like many of you, for me, the path towards better and better and better, and maybe ultimately abolition, is not entirely clear. And I think that Josh was very optimistic and positive, which is his task in a motivational opening speech, and I don't want to undermine that. But
you're welcome to do so.
But Prop 2 and Prop 12 is in serious trouble right now. So even if we achieve that, it's no guarantee that we keep having it, and that is.
It's still not the end goal, of course.
Yeah, and we have a sanctuary at home. My girlfriend rescues about 700 chickens every year, and I see those chickens coming in, and they don't come from cages, but they're in terrible conditions. So I don't see entirely the way forward, and also those changes. Yeah, Josh said it makes a huge difference for chickens. It is probably a huge difference for chickens, but by far it's not where we want to be. So
of course, I think no matter what's our strategy is, our end goal is complete abolition of the use of animals. But how we get there is of course different. My way of thinking about it is that from the market perspective, all those welfare improvements basically remove the worst conditions. So we also kind of added the choice of the consumers, and I think it's still better that the consumers have this option removed. But I just wanted to get back a bit on that veganism thing. I was watching the talk that you had with Paul Bashir, and what struck me, I wasn't aware of that, is that Paul Bashir is the head of abolition for Anonymous for the Voiceless, which are doing a lot of street work. And yeah, we in Poland at Roślinnie Jemy were always advocating for making plant-based eating or more plant-based eating easy. And it struck me that their demands is to actually convert people to be vegan activists. And I mean, who of your family and friends is eager to eat more plant-based when you push them? And if you ask people to become vegan activists, the bar is set very high. So, yeah, I was quite surprised about this kind of approach. Maybe some vegan gatekeeping in our movement as well. Not only as a big, let's say, social norms change, but also dragging people into our movement and that kind of gatekeeping. It's kind of, I don't know.
I think that what Anonymous tries to do is really tell people to go vegan, and if you arrive there at the cube of truth and you say I'm already vegan, then that's not enough. They will tell you you should be an active vegan, and actually I agree with the emphasis on that last part, on activism, on advocacy, and on change making. What I don't agree on is that an activist has to be vegan in order to work for the animals, and I think that's a big mistake that we are having. We are putting such an emphasis on that, and therefore I think many people who are not vegan, they will say that food is not for me because I'm not vegan. That activism or that speaking out about this topic is not me because I'm not vegan. And it's partly our fault, because we are going to, as soon as somebody says oh, I do this and this for the animals, or I love blah, blah, blah animals, then we are going to tell them, oh, so you're vegan. And if you're not vegan, why are you a hypocrite and whatever. So I think that's the gatekeeping that's very bad and dangerous. And we have to make sure that anybody can do some kind of activism for animals, and many people I think are ready for it. They're just not maybe ready to give up animal products entirely, but that's okay.
Yeah, and one thing that maybe I can share from our work in Poland is that maybe it's more of an anecdote, but we've been meeting with some ministry representatives, with top-level management of big companies, and the premise that we get those meetings is that we're very professional, we're nice, we approach them with kindness, and maybe we're positive towards them. And the question, what do you actually eat, or are you actually vegan or not, or do you eat meat, never comes. So people also don't care. And maybe like, aside from this gatekeeping in the movement, it's also in our heads that we need to have this vegan premise to achieve change, and we need to wear this label to help animals. Whereas I think, and I like this approach, that I can put up a shirt and a tie, but I have this T-shirt that says, "Oh, vegan for life" or whatever, and no one sees that. But I can still do my job for the animals, and I think we sometimes forget that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like I said, we're putting too much of a premium on that thing, and we are putting too much emphasis on the personal change, the personal, and not even on the personal change, on the 100% being pure. And I think that's a very difficult thing to like only have people who do that in the movement. And when I compare with the anti-slavery fight of the abolitionists, their boycotting of slavery products was just a small part of their campaigning, and actually not a very efficient part. And they opted out of that after some time, and they knew that other things were much more important. So yeah, the structural changes, the things that we do in the world, that we advocate, that we talk about, are, I think, the way I put it sometimes, what comes out of our mouth is so much more important than what goes into it. So our words, our advocacy are much more important than our diet. And I was recently at the Plant-Based University summer camp, where students are taught about like campaigning for plant-based universities, and there were quite some non-vegans there, and I thought that was wonderful. And I was actually thinking, like, we have to make sure that these people don't go vegan, you know? And that was an absurd thought in a way to me, but I was really serious at the same time, because if all of those would go vegan after that camp, the non-vegans wouldn't feel welcome anymore, because 99 or 99.9% is vegan. So we sort of, like, probably all of you are vegan here, right? And that's not such a good thing, I think. I mean, we can say like, yeah, oh wow, we got this far that all animal campaigners are vegan, but if you look at the other side, I think that it means gatekeeping, and it means like that we are not accessible enough for a wider audience as a movement of activists.
Yeah, I'm looking at the watch, so you actually made a nice transition with that what's going out of our mouth is more important. And one thing that I think we're sometimes failing is to kind of create a narrative rather than respond to the narrative. And I mean, like, we couldn't have this conversation if the plant-based labeling ban wasn't brought up, especially with the recent news from the European Commission. Are you familiar with what's happening, more or less? Okay, so you know, European Commission voted in favor of banning plant-based meat names for meat alternatives. And yeah, we're always like responding to that. We're always reacting when it's already happened, even though there is of course some advocacy. But I have this feeling that with that advocacy, we're preaching to the choir. So, what are your thoughts about it, and where do we fail?
I mean, I think that the meat industry, we have woken up the meat industry like maybe 5 years ago for good, and they really moved into second gear in terms of like trying to sabotage whatever we are trying to do, with a lot of success. And I think they've taken over the narrative. They have run great campaigns in terms of like ultra processed things like that. I would love to see us having more resources to like put out a unified message against those things and drive the narrative as you are saying. I think it's a matter of money, of coordination, of also emphasis. I think that one place where we're losing this war right now is culturally. You know, we have, I think, underestimated how much backfiring there would be, driven by the meat industry. And the thing that we always have to remember is we are selling something that people don't want to believe. They are selling something that people just are very eager to believe, right? They are saying like, you can eat this. This thing that you really love to eat, you can eat it. And we are saying like, this thing that you really love to eat, you have to stop eating it. So it's very easy for them. So it means that we need a lot more resources than them to convince people of that message. And we don't have those resources. We have to be smart at that. And I think we have to be especially coordinated and put out a different message. And I think that, I mean, some people say like we can't absorb much more money maybe now at this moment in our movement. I think that like we could spend so much more on PR, on campaigning, on media work to like try to change that cultural story.
Interesting. I would argue with where we need money, or like whether we need money or we need right people in the right places, because I think like and I see Rachel here. What I want to say is that what I think we're missing big time is those relationships that our antagonists have been building over the last 30, 40, 50 years. And let's say strategic, plan-based political policy advocacy has been around for maybe 10 years, more or less, probably less. In Poland, we do it for maybe 2 years with great work of Alicia. And we see how hard it is to get to those ministries because we don't have that kind of common ground. So my question is, how do we build that common ground with those stakeholders? And I'm thinking like, they are friends with all the like hunting associations, all the farmers associations. How do we get them to meet with us over a bowl of hummus? Like, that's harder than like, you know, meeting on a hunting session and, you know, getting private with officials. So if you have any ideas or thoughts about finding our way into officials, I'm happy to hear them. And I think like one of the great cases is like what New York achieved, probably many thanks to what Rachel Aitchison was doing with the public hospitals and advising Mayor Adams. I think that kind of insider work that our movement isn't investing enough.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. That's very important. But to go back to my previous point, these people will also be sensitive to what is culturally
totally
present in terms of. And right now, the wind is like is coming from another direction and is coming is like often vilifying and ridiculing Plan B. I mean, 5 years ago it was so different, and now we're back in that stage. And I think a lot has to do with the political move towards the right and conservative. So and then. The people you want to talk to will think it's not that urgent and that the larger public is not on your side, but is on another side, and they want to be with the farmers. Where I mean, all the sympathy, like in my country, the Netherlands, in France, goes to the farmers. You know, like and you have this story of like those are the common people against the elites. We're going to side with them. So yeah, that narrative I think is very important to shift and to change.
Yeah, totally. And that leads to another question, or like another area for exploration. We're here like for the long run, and we're activists, and we will be there no matter the political wind or the trends or the hype. Whereas businesses have different premise to exist, is to kind of make money. Politicians are there until the next elections. So I'm thinking again, like, how do we talk and how do we make sure that the things that we value and that are important for us stack with those groups of stakeholders that have completely different priorities. And I think like we've been somewhat successful in certain areas. I think like one of the great things is like what's happening in the Netherlands with the protein tracker. We also do that a bit in Poland, and apparently companies want to engage and want to stick around to the agenda, but it's not. It gets harder than it was when we were riding the plant-based wave. Mm-hmm. For me, it's exciting, but yeah, I think it gets way harder. And,
I mean,
thoughts on that?
I think those companies. I mean, first of all, there are, like in retail and businesses, there are good people who know how serious the situation is, who sometimes care about animals, who care about the environment. But again, they will get. They will be able to drag their other people in the company along in the best case when the wind is right and when governments, etc., put these targets, etc. But I'm afraid that many of these targets are in danger, and we've seen politically that some things have been just thrown out. I want to remain optimistic. I think it's really good that, like, certainly in the Netherlands, for instance, retail is running ahead of consumers, I would say, and government.
Yeah, that's also
as well.
hard, right? Like I've been to we've been to the same conference in Amsterdam, mm-hmm. and one of the things that I've heard and got me a bit concerned is that retailers really push in many ways to get the plant-based products out for the consumers, but the consumer doesn't necessarily follow.
I think that's something that we've seen. I mean, if I look at like zooming out, I think we first started as a movement many decades ago, focusing just on consumers. Then maybe 15 years ago, we shifted a lot towards like trying to engage with companies and trying to make them make vegan products, etc. And I think now we're realizing that there's quite some products, they're not good enough, etc., not necessarily, but the demand is not there, and the demand is certainly not there for all these existing companies. The demand is spread thinly over these different companies, and so to some extent I wonder, do we have to like turn back to the demand side, maybe build up more of a grassroots field again, people in the streets that can like really increase the demand so that it becomes viable for those companies. That, and also like government, we need government to create a level playing field to make it easier for these companies to compete. And then welfare regulations may help to like increase the price of the animal product so that the other ones become more competitive.
Yeah, we actually, like, we are thinking a lot with our plant-based Polish team, like how to make more plant-based eating cool again. And sometimes I think like one of the ideas that I particularly like is that we should make it more about abundance, because we're talking about reducing, cutting down, whereas maybe setting the framework as eating more plants, eating more diversified diet could be something that sticks and maybe resonates better with like health aspects and so on. So I always like it's my default to think that like talking about the positive sides and talking about more plant-based is good, but then at the same time we see like more plant-based doesn't mean necessarily less animal-based, so that's very frustrating and puzzling also. Here we have the protein tracker and like the protein split approach that I think like it's one of the most, maybe I can say most brilliant things to do these days, in my opinion, because it really links the increase in plant-based with the slump in animal-based products. Mm-hmm. Even though as we discussed, like in Netherlands, which happen to be one of the most progressive countries in the world, it is hard, right? Mm-hmm. So we're experimenting with that in Poland, and let's see where it gets. One thing that we didn't discuss, but I think like maybe it's worth adding to that topic, is that I also feel that sometimes we don't coordinate well enough between plant-based and welfare work. And actually, like in Poland, we have some cases where we shared contacts or like we gave interest to our cage-free campaign and the other way. But I really like what I think like Madre Brava, Provec are doing with the super lists. So it's a project that puts together a ranking of retailers, and one of the criterias are plant-based protein sales, whereas the other one is high welfare standards. So this is something that I think like we maybe could strategize and use more and kind of bind those things together for the benefit of animals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's
Yeah, I have one more philosophical question or like area for debate that I wanted to discuss with you. So yeah, the world is on fire. Like there's so many horribles happening all over the place. There's genocide in Palestine, there's war in Ukraine, there are drones falling in Poland. And how do we get people to care about animals or diet change? I mean, like this, I think like I don't have a good answer for that, but
yeah,
it's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and I think that maybe part of what we're seeing right now, which is a decreased interest in all these things, is because we are so distracted by all these other things. I think one thing, and this is controversial, but I think our movement should keep prioritizing animals. We are all that the animals have. I think that our attention should always go to them. I just came from the conference, International Animal Rights Conference in Luxembourg. I don't know if some of you have undoubtedly been there. They told me that there were 100 people less than usual, which is quite a bit. And one of the reasons was that there was a boycott on that conference. So people were trying to boycott it, campaigning to boycott it, because they didn't think the organizers were Palestine friendly enough. And I'm thinking like, what a shame that is. I mean, we all care about these things. We don't have to prove to each other that we're good people. I think we have to trust that we care about all these issues. But I do think that we can unashamedly put the animals first. And the result of such a boycott is 100 people less, 100 people who learned less, 100 people who didn't recharge their batteries by being there. They stayed home or whatever. And what have we achieved through that? Nothing. So I think that no matter what's happening, we have to keep putting the animals first.
Yeah, it's also the matter of like spreading too thin. I mean, like you cannot be a good activist working on shitloads of different cause areas. I mean, that's at least my take, that I would rather focus on one thing, do it well, be effective, build my expertise around it. And it doesn't mean that I don't care. And
exactly.
I think it's important to say that, like, I bet like we're all here like very decent human beings, but we need to strategize and prioritize.
Yeah.
And as you said, like we're all animals have, so
yeah.
I think it's
and we
important.
can still care about all these other topics, but maybe not within the organizational context, maybe outside of it personally.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We don't have that much time left. And as you said, it's been 20 years that you've been doing animal advocacy, plant-based advocacy of some kind. Was there a time that you were sick of it, that you had enough?
I had a burnout at some point, but that was because I was sick of leading people. Like people are the hardest thing, I think, in an organization, the conflicts that you might have, etc., as a leader or as a manager. But other than that, I have never been burned out of the topic, and I cannot imagine anything else that I would do with my life. I don't get passionate about any other issue in comparison with this issue. So no, and I also don't like. Maybe I should say, because I've been saying some negative things and here, and I should say like I am very hopeful, and I think that the thing that gives me most hope is, even if we don't see in society the numbers go up enough, what we are seeing, I think, especially internally is our movement getting stronger and stronger and more professional and more funding and more a bigger and bigger ecosystem of funding and meta organizations and courses and trainings and I mean, if you are as old as I am and you can zoom out and you can look back 25 years ago, there was nothing like that. I mean, you had no opportunities. Right now, if you have a good idea for an organization, you can find the funding for that. If you have talent and an idea, you can find the funding for that. Back then, there was, I mean, we were some teachers and some social people, social workers, and there, I mean, nothing wrong with those people, but like there were no professionals in there in the sense of the like people who knew about law or economy or finance. You know, we were all these like soft people, and now we have people from all kinds of like ways of life and all kinds of disciplines. I think that I'm really hopeful. I mean, the good thing is that like we're so small. We have this 250 million, which is less than the Metropolitan Museum of Art has in a year. Like that's what we worldwide have. The good thing is we've been doing a lot with that money, and I'm just hoping for just one billionaire, you know, like who says like I'm gonna double the budget of the movement. That is entirely possible. You know, we just have to find that, and then maybe another one and another one, and so there's a lot of opportunities for growth, given that we have been doing so much with so little.
Yeah, agreed. My thought with that kind of resonates strongly with what Josh was saying about speed. I like speed, and I like doing a lot of things at once. Yeah, my team hates me sometimes for that, because sometimes I would optimize for doing a lot of things at once and like pushing in different directions, and it might be daunting. But then like I realized that I like speed, and another reflection is that the things that we do take time. And as I said, like we started our policy work like 3 years ago. Did we have any success? I would say we had a lot of success, but this translates to making a meeting with the ministry for the first time, or getting to talk about plant-based protein not as feed but as for food. So those, and this is like effects of 3 years of working, let's say, or like building those relationships, like knocking the doors, like sending those emails. So it kind of like the thinking about the long-term game makes me excited that we've pushed a bit far and we're like this little step ahead, and maybe we'll get there at some point.
Yeah.
And sometimes I forget about it, like having so many things to do and so being excited about so many developments. Yeah, that can be also kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, I think regarding speed, I think that time basically goes faster than you think, especially as you get older. It goes by very fast, and there's less that you can do in a year than you think. And if you think like where we will be in 10 years, you think like, oh, it could be so much, but 10 years goes by so fast. And we have to look at it as like not a sprint, not a marathon, but an ultra marathon. And I think that like basically, if all goes well, human beings might be around for many years, maybe thousands of years in some shape or whatever, and that this period that we have to bridge in order to get to a point where we want to be could be relatively short compared to the long term that we want to see. That's what we
and you can always bring the struggle, the fight for abolition of slavery. Yeah, 150 years, right, or even more maybe.
Yeah, although like once they started, that was pretty fast. That was over in 30 years. So
still,
yeah. But that was
our movement is like 50 years old.
It's not very
So sometimes we forget about it.
Small young movement, and like Josh said, we've already been doing so much. So I remain hopeful.
Yeah. So just to maybe wrap things up briefly, we meant to talk about plant-based advocacy. We touched a lot of topics. Do you think we should have a shared vision do we have a shared vision as a movement of what to expect, or like what should we push for in the next coming years?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, like you're also a founder of ProVeg International, one of the core organizations in the like global sphere.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So we have this in-between vision of 50 by 40, which is a reduction of or replacement 50% by 2040. I think that's hard to achieve at this point as we can come closer to 2040. I mean, the vegan world, I think, is our shared vision and abolition, but that's not like a vision that it's easy to communicate to other people. Although, I mean, in the years that I've been active, I've seen the idea of like, will we eat meat in the future as becoming more and more of a real question. And it used to be absurd 30 years ago. It was more popular 5 years ago than it is now. But many people are wanting to take that question seriously. So that is a very good thing.
Yeah, I would double down on that and also add that I like this idea of making factory farming obsolete, because this kind of resonates well with food and with welfare, and this is something that we can nicely align with other groups as well.
Yeah.
And
I think it's something, and people in the movement are thinking about that of like maybe redirecting our target and or changing target and trying to abolish factory farming. I think there's a lot of support for that. I think it's potentially a great idea, even though like it's hard to define what factory farming is, and when if a smaller system or a less intense system is necessarily better, etc. But we can get a lot of people potentially on our side that way.
Yeah, definitely. Let's close with one last thing to explore, and then we'll get to questions, which I haven't looked at. So. Reasons for hope, reasons for despair. Tobias, you wanna start?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk about despair anymore, but for hope, I think, yeah, like I said, this movement, I think we also have to keep just believing in people, no matter how hard it is. I like to believe that most of us are empathic and decent people, and in that sense, it's extremely frustrating that like we have such a clear mission, and what we are fighting is so obviously bad, and people so obviously care about many of these things, and they wouldn't want these things done to their dog, and still it's progressing slowly. But at the same time, that gives me hope that sometime we are going to break through that, and people are going to see that this is like immensely, incredibly wrong. So both emotionally, their empathy, I believe in that, and I believe also that most people have, to a certain extent, rationality, and we will make the right choices. So it's a matter of faith in humanity. I think that's really important for your own sustainability. Like if you don't have that, and if you don't have it, just fake it. It's really important to keep on going on, to have that faith. And you can always choose to look at the bright spots and the bright examples. It's easy to look at the dark places, but there's always wonderful examples of people who are changing, who are doing different stuff. There's so many beautiful things to look at, and that's what we have to keep doing. Yeah,
I would add to that I've stopped eating meat like half of my life ago, so like almost 18 years ago. World was different back in the day. When I joined Open Cages and Rośliniemy and Anima International, so almost 8 years ago, world was different, and I think like so many things have changed. And as I said, like we're building and we're creating this capacity that our antagonists, or like people who like to keep the status quo, have been establishing for the last 50, 60, 70, maybe 100 years if you talk about factory farming. So we're only starting. And one reason for hope that I have is that we're here for a reason, and maybe we are facing headwinds these days because the plant-based hype is gone, whatever. But we're in to persevere, and if not, then if not us, then who, right?
Exactly, yeah. And
Yeah.
and I think it's like Josh said, I mean, one reason for hope, I think, is like, even if all else goes bad, I know that we as a movement, the people who care about animals, I don't know any more passionate group, and I know that we will never stop. Like Josh said, we will not give up on this. So that in itself is reason for me to keep on being hopeful.
So task for all of you guys, be resilient.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah. Okay, I will respect the timing and get to the questions, and I will start with the most voted one, which happens to be that one. I will read it out loud from Heidi. Tobias said that the anti-slavery movement did not have great success with the boycott strategy. Which strategies were the most successful from that movement that we could learn from?
What I like a lot about looking at these anti-slavery movement is how pragmatic people are, and some people today in the movement will look at that movement and say the opposite, and they will say like, yeah, anti-slavery activists, they didn't demand for improvements in welfare of the slaves, but yeah, they did exactly that. They did all those things. They asked about they asked for sympathy for the British sailors, actually, you know, like the sailors on the slave ships. These people were important in getting the public to look at this topic. There were economic arguments. There were all kinds of arguments that had nothing to do with morality. You know, so that is something that we as idealists can learn from this pragmatism that they had.
Yeah, I would agree that like the case for the health of British sailors was very interesting. So adding extra arguments and also building a business case around it, I think was very, very one of the foundational ways that moved towards anti-slavery. Or abolition of slavery. Okay. From Yusuf, I can grasp the foundational logic behind not being a vegan and still being anti-exploitation. It is hypercritical on the individual and the collective level alike. One can be a misogynist and a feminist. One can be an egalitarian and a slave master. If we are able to follow our own advice, it would be really hard to sell it to the masses. Interesting. How do we organize an international movement towards a world of free of animal exploitation when the basic daily behavior of its members are extremely divergent?
I understand the question, and I used to think that way, but I think there's a lot you can say against that. I think that, like, if you look at other movements, I mean, you can say like, yeah, you cannot be a feminist and misogynist at the same time, or whatever it was, but there is, as a feminist,
gray zone. I think there's the whole scale of between those positions.
They're very different things. There's more support for the one thing than the other, but also, like, I think as a feminist, environmentalist, all these other things, there's no such clear-cut set of rules that you have to follow in terms of your behavior. Or look at religions. I mean, you can be a Muslim or a Jew or whatever, and there will be variation in the things that you do, the rules that you follow, the behavior that you demonstrate. With us, it's supposed to be like entirely the same. Everybody is supposed to like eat no animal products, and otherwise they are hypocrites, and I think that's very unhelpful. I think that is exactly the way not to create a vegan world and critical mass.
Yeah, it feels pretty much like strong gatekeeping, and I'm always very far from judging people on their personal behavior, especially like people that we work with on daily basis, so like politicians, companies. If I were to judge them on what they do or how they operate their companies, I wouldn't be able to push it forward, because I could only launch an like an aggressive campaign against them. And our take is that sometimes we work hand in hand with them to kind of make the world a bit less shitty for the animals. And the reason for that might not be necessarily animals, so why not capitalize on that and make use of that? Okay, we can try one more. From Deep, thank you. What are the opportunities you see for the non-profit groups to collaborate with the for-profit side like Beyond, Just Eat, etc.? We all have common goals, but seem to be fighting in separate paths. Yeah, maybe I can just start with one thing that concerns me a lot about that these days in the for-profit side. I really hate when companies in the plant-based and cultivated sphere sue each other for various reasons. It's so counterproductive, and I'm thinking about like maybe writing a piece on that, and maybe you should do it as well because you have wide reach. But I think it's something that maybe comes from this like for-profit perspective, but it's definitely not helping. And if I can just briefly answer that. I think like we as a movement can use for-profit businesses as a tool to advance our cause. And one case could be like funding like associations of producers that advocate on the governmental level. And we do that in Poland. Seems to open a lot of doors that we couldn't reach. I know other groups like are using or like working hand in hand with like for-profit businesses to advance things, but that could be some of my thoughts, just to make it short.
Yeah, I think we can basically be some kind of like cheap marketing arm and create demand for these companies' products. I think that's important. And another thing is, apart from like helping them, we should not sabotage them, because there's also some of that going on quite a bit of like people saying Beyond Meat is this and this company is evil because they use, I mean, yeah, I think it's about Beyond Meat, animal testing or whatever. And this other company is like, is part of a bigger company that sells meat. And so we should boycott it. And like all these things are not useful, especially I mean in a market where that is really hard. So we cannot be their enemies.
Yeah, creating demand, of course.
Yeah.
That makes me sad when I see like boycotts of like plant-based companies because they are not vegan enough or like not perfect enough.
Yeah, it's like, pretty terrible, I think.
Oh, too bad. Okay, one more from Zlata. How do we approach the dilemma where cage-free eggs and other guilt-free animal products sort of calm down consumers' conscience, and therefore they may feel that stopping eating these products is not necessary? I mean, it doesn't seem at first like a path to abolition. It's kind of old dichotomy, but would be interested in hearing your opinion.
Yeah.
Let's start.
Go ahead.
As I said, like one of my main thoughts about this is that we are editing the choice of consumers and removing the worst practices from the market. So that's kind of what resonates with me. The other thing is that higher welfare means often higher price. So that can also be potentially beneficial to reducing consumption of those products. And yeah, Josh said about some research that I haven't heard of, but it's very interesting, about the fact that people who kind of take the leap and choose, let's say, higher welfare products express higher interest in like reducing meat consumption or like choosing more plant-based. So this would be like some of the initial thoughts. And on the meta level, not from the consumer's perspective, I think it's also our duty that we help animals who are currently in the food systems, and this means to me welfare work.
Yeah, I would repeat most of your arguments. I do understand the question. I think it's not clear cut, and there is a danger of complacency, I think. But at the same time, we have the duty. We can increase the price, and I do think that people who start thinking about these things, also through undercover investigations about welfare, etc., are on a path towards caring about animals more and more, and may eat less and less meat and eventually become vegan and hopefully vegan activists.
Yay. Okay, can we squeeze one more? Yeah. From Anna. How can we make sure that animal product consumption and production really go down, and not only plant-based products being consumed as a new added category?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question, and it's like I said, really mind-boggling that like plant-based products go up and the meat doesn't go down, and of course it's like a very easy thing to do for retailers. Like if they see like, okay, we have more money from this plant-based category and this is not going down, wonderful for them. I think Aldi or Lidl in Germany was the first retailer that said like we're also going to like reduce and I think this is something that has to be done among retailers, like an agreement among retailers, because just one can't do it. Like in the Netherlands, I think Jumbo has stopped advertising for meat products, discounting them. So this is something again that should be done on the level of all the retailers together.
Yeah, that's one thing. The other thing that I think is kind of important and worth mentioning, that I don't know, like, how about you, but Polish plant-based market 8-10 years ago was very poor, and there was like not many products on the shelf. So we deliberately worked on increasing the number of plant-based products, and it might be the case for many of the areas that you're from, that there is nothing, so consumers cannot kind of make their choices and make those choices in an easy way. So sometimes it might be smart to to focus on that first chapter, let's say, of getting the plant-based products out there, so that it's not that much of a hurdle for a random citizen, random consumer to opt for plant-based. And we sometimes forget that. But then it's good to realize and reflect upon that, which we did in Poland, and we thought about tying the increase in plant-based sales with the decrease in animal products consumption. And one of the areas that resonate, or one of the interventions that resonate with me very strongly, is the protein split campaigns, where it's directly when the increase in protein sales is directly proportionate to the decrease in animal product sales. It's hard, and we're only starting, but I think it's a valid strategy that hopefully proves to work. We'll see. Of course, we talked a bit about it, that retailers struggle to get consumers to eat more plant-based and eat less meat, but yeah, we gotta try and see. Maybe fail and learn from it and try something else. But yeah, lots of thoughts to kind of process.
Yeah, and there's also like, I mean, things that we don't have under our control, like certain, I mean, wars or pandemics or diseases or zoonoses or whatever that can make certain things more expensive, that can shift economies. So that
we hope for the tick.
The tick is one of my favorite interventions. Yeah.
Okay, many thanks. Great applause, Tobias. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for attention, and I like to admit that you can vote this particular session on your inventory app, so don't hesitate to do it. Thank you for worthy discussion, and have a nice time for the rest of the conference.
Thank you.